Welcome to this week's podcast, brought to you in association with Shannon Hotel and Spa in Dunfanaghy. Shannon are actually doing a half price sale at the minute, like spring summer sale, so get on it. Just use the promo code half price on their website. Definitely a good time to get down, coming under the good weather. Beautiful place. Mike, you know all about it too, don't you? Like, you're a spa man, or do you? Like,
oh, definitely. You can see I like a pamper weekend.
Well, you can see I'm here with Michael Wilson. Kevin McLaughlin has just had enough after the Galway match. I think that finished him. But it has been a per week, per few weeks, Mike. You know, in terms of the 3-week game, like, you know, after the whole hurrah about Shelburne and Shamrock Rovers, and then we have 3 games where we can make up a wee bit of ground, capitalise on those performances and results, and it ends up we get a 1-1 draw at Bows, a very lucky 1-1 draw last minute goal against Galway at home at Celtic Park, and then Friday night was just, again, I think half the crowd were sleeping. No matter what people's interpretation of that match was, it wasn't good.
No. Well, it's been a few weeks since I've been on with you, and it's got an awful feel of deja vu about it, doesn't it? I mean, I remember sitting in the Celtic Park press box with yourself and Kev with a win over Shamrock Rovers, and it was probably more out of hope than expectation that you thought, is this the corner turning? Have we turned the corner? Are we going to go on a run? Like, I mean, because beating Shells, beating Rovers, 2 good results, and you're thinking they're finally going to kick into gear here. Fast forward another, 10 days or so after, and I can understand why Kev jumped on his plane and took off to his palace in the sun again, so he mightn't come back.
no, and he won't be there for Waterford too, just have to say, but and God knows how that's going to go, but there has to be some sort of response. I know I did a piece with Maggie Duffy, it's in today's Derry Journal, where he talks about the players having they're fighting for their places now. Like, I think everybody's just fighting for positions, and manager included, like, because in terms of the apathy and which it sort of swings from apathy to anger and back again, and the fans have just had their say online. You can see, Mick, I'm sure you've seen the reaction, some of the decision making and the results.
You couldn't miss it, like, but it's like you say, it has sort of swung both ways, and it's almost like at times, you know, there's a bit of lack of direction as to what's going on. Nobody's quite sure. But I mean, going back to that Drogheda match, I think me and you were having a quick chat there before we even came on air about some of the instances, and I was struggling to remember it. That was, I'm not trying to be funny, but it was an instantly forgettable, you know, match in one sense. And like, did Drogheda deserve to win it? Probably not. You know, they didn't. The one thing you could say for Derry City is Drogheda didn't create an awful load either. But from a Derry City point of view, the onus is on Derry. You know, Drogheda aren't holding themselves up as at the start of the season as prospective title challengers. Derry were. You know, so to do that, you have to be able to go and impose your game on teams like Drogheda, you know, teams like Galway, teams like Sligo. Derry, I haven't seen them impose their game on anybody this season. You know, I've seen them play well in patches and, you know, a few good periods of play and stuff, but I haven't seen them impose any sort of period of dominance in anybody. Yes, if you want to talk about playing from midway in their own half to midway in the other half, you know, they'll pass it about, they'll knock it about and things like that. But against a team like Drogheda, they were happy for Derry to do that. I mean, Derry did have periods of possession, but they weren't hurting Drogheda by the possession. No,
and like, we can get on the tactics and you know, Tiernan is just chopping and changing. He's the Tinkerman, and like, I was going through some of the formations and lineups that he's had from the start of this season. He had a bit of a history of doing that last season as well too. But when he found that consistency, you seen the upturn in results. But like, I think he's made every match. He's made at least 2 changes from the previous game. But you can get away with it in terms of he's feeding people back from injuries and stuff like that, and you got to be careful managing them.
There is a ball with injuries and stuff.
There is, and there was suspensions. The key players that are coming back, so you get a buy ball for, you have to make changes or enforce some of them. But it's just too. It's not just the changes in personnel. But it's the tactical changes, not even tactical, I wouldn't even call it tactical, it's just changes of formation, and the way they're lined up, and who plays and where, like, you know, and who decides they play in certain positions.
Well, you look at
the obvious is like, it just sometimes it smacks you in the face, like that we made mention of the time where, you know, O'Reilly was out and you Dummigan, just bring him in the middle.
No, but I thought the Drogheda had something similar like that too, where Kevin DeSantos was given his first start on the basis of, probably, let's be honest, on the basis of that 3 or 4 minute cameo against Galway. So you bring in
He did train really well during the week. I'm not being smart about that, but that's what Tiernan said. Yeah. When I asked him afterwards, he says he was excellent during the week.
Well, I thought, look, that's a positive move. You're going with 2 wingers. Mickey was back, and I thought, you know, what's the one thing you want when you've got 2 wide men capable of delivering a ball in the box?
You want Eamon Zaid.
Well, you want a centre forward.
But no.
And the weird thing about it was you bring DeSantos in, and then you take a centre forward out. I think James Clark's been one of Derry's best players, by the way. But I know that's this false 9 thing. I don't see James playing that role. That's
nobody got like it was very good, and I understand where they're saying. Like, I know a couple of players were saying too that they were actually playing some nice exchanges, but it wasn't hurting. It wasn't. They weren't penetrating. Nobody got beyond. Yeah. They're that false number 9, James Clark. Nobody got beyond them, and as you say, like, when you've got wingers, and that's what you've got to get on the, you got to have more box entries.
I'm going to take on the Kevin McLaughlin role here if you start talking about box entries and you know, expected goals and stuff like that. I'm not a fan either. But
that's the one thing too. Tiernan did get like roasted about that interview that he keeps going back to these XGs and you know, all the stats. They force a narrative, like, you know, and it's
the biggest stat in the world is the result, the scoreline. That's the one result you have to work on. Although, what we're saying about James Clark in the false 9 position, obviously with a false 9, he's going to drop. That's the point of a false 9. But if you're putting balls in the box, the one thing that I think has hurt, and I wouldn't even say this is exclusive to Tiernan and his team. I think this has gone back maybe even when Rory was in charge and before. Derry, for some reason over the past 5 or 6 years, has a real lack of players almost willing to run beyond the ball, to go beyond the ball, to stretch the defence. It's maybe how the modern game has sort of developed, where everybody wants to come to the ball, wants to get on it, wants to pass it. But Derry still, and I think it was very noticeable against Drogheda because of the false 9, that we still lack a player who's willing to do the running off the ball, to stretch a player, you know, to create a wee bit of space for some of the other guys. And like you see, I think you've seen Dos Santos, he put a great ball in at one point in the first half, but we didn't have.
There was nobody there to attack it. But also, like, what I liked about him, and he's that type of player. He is a type of player that goes at defenders and stuff. But he was bringing that on. He was coming inside, but he was trying, and that's what you need, somebody to create. Like, you know, the ball might break to somebody, and something happens, or you open up room for a shot. But it's there was, at least he was trying. They break the lines, and I was just few and far between. Obviously, Mickey's the type of boy that does that. He's just coming back, just not exactly up to full speed, you know. But
I don't think anybody in Derry City would criticise Mickey in the sense of what he's done this last while, and he sort of does get a by ball again because he's coming back. But if you can't win a game with 10 playmakers. No, you have to have a blend of guys who are willing to go off the ball and to go in behind defences. Derry, and as I say, I don't think it's exclusive to Tiernan's reign. I was trying to rack my head just when no one was coming in here to think of, like, I was thinking of Joe Thompson, Kieran Martin were the last couple of boys that we had who were willing to do that.
Even like
sort
Jordan,
of job.
Jordan McInnes would have done it.
And you've seen Jordan got goals for it. Even Joe would have got goals. That's something that Derry haven't really replaced. But when you're playing a false 9, I think that then becomes crucial, because if he's coming in here, you have to have at least one, possibly 2 guys who are willing to make that run beyond. And
that's what I mean.
Didn't happen.
But why make these changes? I just think is he overthinking things? Is he overthinking opposition instead of just nailing down, this is my best team available to me, and we're confident that we have the ability here to break down this defence. You know, it's against Drogheda, it's a second ball game, and it's like, you know, they were just set up perfectly for it. They knew their game plan was executed to perfection. That was a penalty, but they did very well. They worked that penalty. Again, it was soft in terms of Derry defending it, and there was no doubt about it. Jamie Stott, he kind of played on his hands, you know. And
it was rash because I mean, I think it was Warren Davis, wasn't it?
Warren Davis, who was very tricky because they were.
He's a good player.
The
He knew
whole
what he was
game,
doing as well.
the whole game, they targeted that left side with Brandon Fleming as well too. Whether they identified some sort of a weakness there, or maybe it was just they were confident in Warren Davis getting on and challenging him and running with the ball, and all right, it did cause problems, but it was very noticeable that they were. Everything was going down that right hand side of Drogheda.
As soon as he gets into the box, you can't touch him, and I think he just tempted Jamie enough to stick the leg out, and it's one of them. We've many times have we said the same thing. Like Drogheda seemed to have Derry's numbers last couple of years, and the one it's hard enough to break them down at 0-0. See it 1-0.
Oh no!
I would love to have sort of panned around the Derry City supporters to see who was still optimistic that they were going to turn that around, because it seemed like a mountain, which is a reflection of how Derry have been playing.
Yeah, because I think it's like 1982. We had the 1982 file out here, Mick. We were down in the Journal office and we were looking at the last time Derry broke down. They scored more than one goal down in Drogheda. One of the stats, and I'm sure Tiernan will thank me for bringing that up, but I was looking back at their performances against them, and there was the 3-0 at the Brandywell was our last one, and the 3 goal scorers were Danny Mullen, Ronan Boyce and Sam Todd. Very noticeable. So it led me to look at it, right, that was the 3 goal scorers tonight. Very different game, very different Drogheda, very different Derry. But it was only last year, and I looked at that squad, and there was only 5 or 6 players in the whole 20-man squad of that game that are still there. And some of them are Liam Boyce, who was sitting behind me in the stand. Guys that haven't been playing this season. And obviously Brian Maher was behind me. But it just shows you.
But that's a massive turnover.
It's a massive turnover. And I know we'll get on to the head of recruitment later on after we go through this match in more detail. But the
one thing, see when you're talking, you're talking about massive turnover of players. That just means stability. Where's the stability? Like if you have guys, you need to build relationships, but you also need to feel secure and to produce your best. Like if you're saying there's 5 from that match, which isn't a long time ago.
You had Adam O'Reilly was one, obviously, and it was before the likes of Fleming came in as well. I think it was June, and he came in later on. But it was just very.
So it's probably fair to say there's an entire new backline since that game.
Yeah, because obviously Eddie Beats was on for Brian Maher, but even counting Brian Maher, that's for me. I think that's crazy. Like overhaul of players. Like.
Well, you're never going to get stability. That's the point we're making. You're never going to get stability if you're regularly turning over double figures of players every year. It's not sustainable, and nobody. It's not that you don't need to freshen things up. Of course you do, but if a team finishes second last year, 3 or 4 new faces will be lifted up. But
you don't dismantle it, and I think that's what's the shortcomings this year. Is just there's been too much change. There's been where probably didn't need to. I know Tiernan's probably wanting to put his stamp on that team, but I think it's
by the end of last year.
He did, because even like the players that came in, and you had the Winchester boys and. I know Gavin White he hasn't featured, and last year it was in and out. But those guys, like some of the signings, have been very good in that regard.
There's a lot of pedigree in the squad.
There definitely is. I just find it's mind-boggling like how much change there's been.
When you hear about that change. And those numbers, I wasn't aware of them. Did you just say that there now?
Something like 30 players, up to close to 30 players that he's brought in the 3 windows. Like an average of 10 players a window.
Like if you're
not talking about players going out.
If you're averaging 10 new signings per window, then it's like a revolving door. You can sort of understand why there's a bit of upheaval and that people are unsettled, because you have to remember too, like when new players come in, the guys that are there. It unsettles them. You obviously they go 1 or 2 ways. They want to fight for their position, but it can also unsettle them. And there's a different dynamic in the changing room and all. And that Derry dressing room to me doesn't look like, I know everybody, and they have to say the right stuff in the media and all, but it doesn't look like a dressing room that's settled on what it actually is yet. If you know what I mean. What brand of football are they? What do they? I would never question the commitment of them boys, because I think you do see it every week.
Without a doubt, there's nobody who has down tools or has that on them. Like they just wouldn't do it for their own personal pride.
But they just seem to be struggling defined an identity. And I thought you could see that against Drogheda because they weren't sure, like, are we title challengers here? Are we mid? Well, like, we obviously think they should be. The talent's there for it. It hasn't panned out. So there's people questioning themselves. It just looks like a team that's a wee bit lost at the minute as to what it actually is.
Teams are now. I get the impression that they're rubbing their hands with Derry coming down because they're not much. I wouldn't say. I think turmoil is a strong word, but there is so much inconsistency with them, and as you say, like, a bit of confusion of who's playing where, and for me, I seen how despondent they were. Like, that's the beauty of being at the matches end too, because you get to see things that you mightn't see on the TV, and seeing the players. I've never seen Mickey Duffy so despondent, so like he looked defeated after the match, and I've never seen him like that. Now he was. I think he got 71 minutes, which is probably more than Tiernan would have wanted him to get. In fairness, because he is managing him coming back. It was his first start since March 20th or something with the draw. Last time they played Drogheda, so the is like sort of easing him back. But it was the first time he wasn't happy getting brought off. First time I've ever seen that wee bit of. No, I'm not saying that he was like shouting and roaring and throwing the dummy out of the pram. Is that the saying? I always get that saying.
No, you're all right. That's
but toys out of the pram. Why is it dummy?
I just let you go with dummy.
but he challenged Tiernan in terms of, like, he was asking why are you bringing me off. Yeah. This is what I interpreted from it. At the exchange, now the Tiernan obviously offered his reasoning, and Mickey didn't look happy. He was shaking the head, shrugging the shoulders, getting down. And when a guy like that is questioning decisions, and and he's not the only one. Josh Thomas was brought on where I thought it was harsh, because he's going back to his old stomping ground. I seen them walking under the ground, and Josh Thomas, Darren Markey, they were greeted by everybody.
Yeah,
it was a former home of their own, and they're probably itching to get on and show what they can do. And he gets, we're on stoppage time, and he gets the last 3 minutes, and he turns in uncertain terms, questions that decision and says, what do you want me to do in 3 minutes here?
Well, you see that.
So you're getting a wee bit of friction there in my eyes. Well, it could have been just the heat of the moment and at the time.
Of course it is.
But it just feels like more than that.
What you're talking about would be worrying. Do you know what I mean? And I, as you say, you have to take the two instances on their, individually. But what worries me collectively is that that's going on in public. Usually that's the sort of stuff that players will do in private. Don't kid yourself that people aren't banging down their manager's door. But usually that's saved for dressing rooms and training room grounds. Like, the Mickey one, if you're looking at it, I can see both sides of it. I can see Tiernan thinking, I can't afford for this guy to be out for 3 months. Not. I can't afford it. And as you say, 71 minutes. But you're one down at Drogheda, and the temptation has to be there. Yeah. Mickey's thinking, I can still contribute here.
That's exactly what he said. He said that in the interview afterwards, that I still felt I had something in me to give, like I could create something. So, and obviously that's the way he thinks. He's a winner. He wants to win games.
A competitor's going to think like that.
Exactly. But
I can see Tiernan's thing too, because
of course, and he also brought on Duppo at that stage. So he's bringing on. It's not as if he's bringing on a defensive-minded player or anything else. He brought on Duppo, and they had Riley on at the time, who had that shot off the underside of the bar.
Probably the highlight from Derry's point of view, that one. But I can. Josh Thomas as well. That's probably frustration from Josh coming, because as you say, players love coming back and proving, look what these are missing out to their old team. And my worry about it is that players are doing that in public, because that's never a great sign. That's in a tight knit operation. That's kept for training grounds and dressing rooms and stuff like that. But with Josh, as I say, the flip side of that is he's looking at his team one down. They're at his old ground. He's probably penciled that match in from the first week. I want to dying to get back down, show them what I can do again. And as you say, he's coming on injury time. That's bound to have irked him a bit. But I can see. I would like to have seen him on earlier from that point of view. I think he should have been thrown in. Now the Mickey one I can understand. Although I have to be honest, if I was in Tiernan's shoes, I would have been sorely tempted to leave Mickey Duffy in there when you're trying to get a goal.
I no doubt about it. And especially if he was feeling all right. He did say he was tiring, obviously. He's building up the minutes again. But it's the whole point that when I had to ask him afterwards, Tiernan, and I'll play a wee bit of the audio here from it. Just bear in mind we're down on the pitch side, so the audio mightn't be as clear as it should be, but Tiernan sort of gives his reasoning behind having the two strikers on the bench and the team selection, which I asked him because it's kind of raised a few eyebrows, obviously. So here's what Tiernan had to say about his team selection.
We have to start winning games. We know that. We're not sugarcoating that. We're not trying to. We're unbeaten there on 6, but we need to start winning them. We need to start putting our dominance in the wins and in the goals, and that's hugely frustrating. It's not even a matter of dusting ourselves off, because, as I say, we got to take the positives out of tonight, and that's really, really difficult for probably supporters, and because we lost, and that's what they'll look at. But from a player's perspective and a team perspective, we got to pick out the positives and things that we've done really, really well.
Cheers. 5 changes a night from Monday night. Can you tell me what the reason behind that was?
There was an element of we needed to freshen up a little bit. There was changes that were kind of enforced on us with people who maybe haven't played a huge amount, and they get 3 games in a week would have been just too much for them. There was also an element of we wanted to try and we know we're not scoring enough goals at the moment, and we wanted to get people on the pitch who have been scoring goals and get as many of them on the pitch as we possibly could. And as I say, there was so many good things tonight. I found it very, very difficult to go in after the game and be hugely critical or have a go at the players because there were so many things they done well. The part that's probably ripping the confidence out of us or disappointing us at the moment is we're just not being clinical in that final third, and then to concede a stupid penalty, which is hugely frustrating.
Yeah, you're saying like that's what you've been going on about, not teams not having to work too hard to get those chances. They get the penalty, the ball down the side. Winchester was caught out, I suppose, too, and it's just too easy, and really you're pulling your hair out when things like that happen.
Yeah, you are, and it's those situations where you can't start feeling sorry for yourself, and that here we go again, and another one where they don't have to work too hard, and that needs to stop. That needs to stop.
What do you think that is, or what can you do? I know you're changing the formation, you're tweaking it slightly, and with a 4 and the 5 at the back, and it's just is it
trying everything. Trying everything is between me and my sleep at the moment, unfortunately. But we just got to keep going. We got to keep trying to pull the players through. We got to keep trying to build their confidence. We got to keep trying to, and hopefully we can get 1 clean sheet, and hopefully 1 can build to 2 and 2 to 3, and that's what we got to keep believing in.
What would you say to people for the reason behind the 2 guys on the bench when you're?
As I said, Clarkie's probably the one that's been scoring goals as of late. Mickey back in the team, who'll get you goals, and it was important that we got Kev on Monday night, got a great goal. He was superb in training and real confidence about him. I thought it was time to give him a start. Again, I thought Darren Markey started to show a little bit of form, and they were players that we wanted to get on the pitch, and for long periods we felt it worked, albeit we didn't get the goals we wanted.
Could just ask you a side point. The club's announced an ad out for a new head of recruitment. Tiernan, what can you tell us about that? As it's something that obviously is going to help you coming up to the summer window and things like that too. But it's an important role, that club.
Yeah, I think that the club's been hugely progressive, and I think Philip, and especially, and has to take huge credit for this. He realises and recognises now that we're making too many changes at any one time, and we have to. Again, that's going to be a building process. That's not an overnight fix. We need to start recruiting and doing better due diligence and spending more time getting top players in the door. And if we're going to have any success, you need to have top players to do it. So I think it's a really huge positive step from the club, and great credit to them.
There you go, Mickey. Now, and the thing is, I don't think people were too happy with Tiernan's comments afterwards about this. He didn't say it to me in that piece, but I heard him on LYTV saying that this is probably our best performance of the season yet, and that to me was slightly worrying, because I get what he's trying to say. He's seeing wee things that they're working on, but it was not the best performance of the season. Not that has to. Not that it's like a high bar, like, but
No.
but it definitely, you know, it was a bore fest.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see, of all the things that I've heard since the Drogheda match, that comment has probably been the thing that has enraged fans more than anything. Exactly. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been pulled 3 or 4 times by boys going, "Did you hear this?" And as you say, I know what Tiernan's trying to get at. He's trying to be positive, but you can't have the Derry City manager coming away from a 1-0 defeat in Drogheda and going, "That's the best we've played all season."
No.
Now, let's bear in mind, they beat Shells and Rovers 2 weeks ago. Like,
you already said it, like, that's all right, just, you know, playing and you know, on the halfway line, knocking it about. Well, that gets you.
Drogheda are letting you do that.
That's why you're bid, you know, because you're not penetrating, you're not getting under you're not being creative. You're not, like, the chances you can count on one hand. If you know, you don't even need the full 5 digits. Like, you know what I mean?
I think Derry do that an awful lot. Where they're in possession's one thing, control's one thing, but it has to be possession with the end product. We've heard that. Everybody's heard that before.
Yeah. There's
no point controlling a 0-0 draw away at Drogheda. You have to be brave and you have to take chances. And best performance of the season. Like, I mean, I hate to disagree with you, Tiernan, but I have seen Derry play better than that on numerous occasions this year. And as you say, the bar's not that high this year. You know, they've definitely played better. Again, what he's probably getting at is the 10-15 minutes where you do see a wee bit of, you know, obviously Conor barred a couple of shots. They started the second half reasonably well up until the penalty and things and all that.
Conor should have scored maybe. Like, I think I was chatting to him afterwards and he probably didn't. Now, Tiernan says he would rather have fell to Mickey Duffy or something like that. But,
you know, probably Conor would rather have fell to Mickey Duffy, but I thought Conor done very well. He got in there twice, got a couple of shots.
I thought he was very solid. Conor's been excellent.
I think you try to encourage your fullback to do that. I mean, Conor's probably listening to that thinking that's the last time.
You know, like, and Ronan Boyce was excellent at that, getting into the box, and they obviously had the goal return too, which was decent for a right
fullback.
back. Like,
it was fantastic. Let's be honest. And like Mark Connolly always weighed in with a couple. Although, in fairness to Patrick McLean, he has a goal threat. He's a very definite goal threat. Like,
even Stott, like, when he can, like, I know I don't think he's got off the mark. Has he? No, he's got one. But they just need more. No, they did. We'll obviously hear from Kevin Doherty here now shortly too, but Drogheda have been very, very vulnerable from set pieces, like, and I know Kevin Doherty's been actually on the training pitch, you know, just, you know, direct them as a former centre half too, you know the crack, Mick, you know, as a former centre half yourself. But he was so it's been particularly galling for him that they've been conceding goals that are very unlike Drogheda. They concede
exactly. That's the reason was galling for him, because if there's one strength they'd have had in past seasons, it would have been, you know, they didn't concede an awful lot from sort of corners, set pieces, balls into the box. They always had boys who were there to head it away, and I thought the big centre half Keeley was fantastic again. Like, he's a guy I would love to have seen at the Brandywell during the close season, but. They looked more. Drogheda actually looked more like Drogheda on Friday than I have seen them in a while, and I think a lot of that is how Derry play. The way Derry tend to play suits Drogheda down to a T. It really, really does. There's no onus on them to get forward, but they're dangerous on the break. They can sit in there, as we've alluded to. Derry don't really hurt them by getting in behind, or, you know.
But that was obviously an area where Tiernan thought he could hurt them, and they did. In fairness, they had, I think, that 7 corners in the first half. Now there was one cleared off from under the bar as well too. It was just a looping header that came in, and I don't think it was an easy enough clearance, but it was clear. It was a clearance off the line. And there was wee glimpses that they might be vulnerable there. We might get a set piece, might be the way, but other than that, there was just lacking creativity.
That's one of the reasons again when we were talking about that false 9. I mean, I think you and Kev mentioned it in the build-up how Drogheda were a wee bit susceptible at set pieces and stuff. But for me, set pieces, that's a cross into the box. So if they're susceptible crosses into the box. Put a decent centre forward on who's going to be there so that you can not just from set pieces, from open play. You can put the ball into the box if you have to, and that's why I thought that team selection was it was curious to say
Yeah,
the
well,
least.
you heard him saying there, Mick, and it was because what did he get? His reason was like these guys are the form guys, the guys that have been scoring the goals. Now there haven't been too many goals, but the likes of James Clark's been scoring goals.
No, I would have James in every day of the week.
You know, you've Dos Santos who scored a goal on the Monday night, gave him a chance, and
but I don't think you can say a guy's a form guy because he's played 5 minutes. In one thing match, and
well,
I'm not saying,
he is not well.
You know, and I know, I don't want to say that in the sense that I didn't think it was I think he was possibly right to take a chance.
Maybe.
But for Kevin Dos Santos to do well as a winger who likes to cross the ball, surely you have to give him somebody to cross it to.
Yes, and then obviously Mickey scores goals, you know. So he had Markey on as well, who was showing about a form, but that was his reasoning. You know, you hear me asking him too about the formation, because it's the same old story. Every week he's coming out and he's saying, you know, we're just, teams don't have to work too hard to score against us. And then there again too was just a move down. There was Winchester of all people was caught out with that ball down the side, and that led to the penalty. So again, it was just a soft goal they gave away. So I asked him, like, you know, what his reasoning too was, or what's he been doing to rectify that and you know, stop it, and as he trying just all these different formations at the back. We've had 3, we've had 5, we had 4 again on Friday. Just too many changes, and as you know, as a defender, you want to be nice and stable, nice and consistent.
You want to know who's about.
You know who's about how you play it.
Exactly.
Like and that for me, that's why I asked, and he was saying that he's, you know, it's between him and a sleep. You know, he's trying everything, which was, you know, again, it's just slightly worrying for me. Like now,
I know what you mean, because it's almost as if throw enough darts and something will stick. What you want is I do think of all, like, chopping and changing up midfield forward is one thing, but I think the one area where you have to settle on who you think's your best formation and personnel is at the back.
Yeah.
And I think Derry have really suffered. There aren't the relationships built up. If it's always chopping and changing, you're not really offering guys a chance to be the leader. I don't think there's a clear leader. Whereas I would have said, like, Mark Connolly, for example, was the clear defensive leader for a couple of years. We don't really have anybody in there at the minute who's like a clear leader, and that's possibly where Brian Maher's even being missed, because I think Eddie Beach has done excellent. But when you've got a back four that is changing, that has reasonably, you know, is a reasonably new back four, Brian would have probably given them that wee bit of stability. You know, he would have been the man talking to them, and so they have missed out on that. But it just looks like, again, it looks like a back line that's not sure of itself.
No. And it shows that, like these are good players, you know, and it's just I would just like to see some, you know, we're second guessing. I'll play Kevin Doherty's interview here, just a wee snippet of that, and then because it kind of leads into what follows on from what we're talking about here. But here's Kevin Doherty's reaction, and just interesting when I asked him if he was expecting Derry to line up the way they did, or was he surprised by it. Obviously, that's a fantastic one. It's 3 and 4 now as well too. I know there's been a lot of doom and gloom about the place after the Rovers game, but it's not bad for him, is it?
No, well, that's, again, if there's any doom and gloom after the Rovers game, it's ridiculous. Like, and I can promise you, there's no doom and gloom in here. People outside the club comments. We went Summer Growers on a Monday. Summer Growers, let's be honest, miles ahead of everyone else. We changed 5 players, conceded 2 poor goals. Certainly wasn't our best performance. But as you say, we've won 3 and 4. We're not getting carried away. We're delighted with the performance because it was sort of went to plan. Yeah. Of course, you'd love to win games 4-3 and all, like we did in Talga. But I wouldn't have mattered 1-0, to be honest. But we were set up well. Had a feeling there you would go like that. We looked again, listened to a few podcasts and all as well. Nah, I'm joking. But we had a funny feeling. I just knew with Duffy being back and Fleming, I had an idea they'd go like that, so sort of suited us in some ways. You know, they obviously changed a bit during the game, and if the players, it's frightening.
Even that false 9, and you know, normally it's been going with.
Well, again, I'll be honest, I won't look. I'm not questioning anyone else's teams, but yeah, it went to the plan that we sort of thought would. But again, that's not like nothing to do with me. It's to do with both groups of players, and I thought our last reaction. Again, like sometimes it's like you can have all the best players in the world, but sometimes I said it's consistently, it's a second ball league. Like whoever controls that wins most games. Even you go to Rovers and stuff, they still win second ball because they're good players that know where to drop. And but look, as I said, it's a good win for us. I know Derry will be disappointed, but look, happy with where we are.
Yeah, because I know you showed that you were vulnerable from set pieces. I know that's been doing your head on.
Yeah,
You've been on the training pitch yourself, you know, shivering.
Well, I have to be honest, and I probably never even said it to the lads because there's so much else going on, but we defend them excellent.
Very good.
Couldn't have given away more corners. I don't know how many corners they had.
7 in the first half.
And then, to be honest, we did a lot of work yesterday with Connor, like, you know, thinking, and so thankfully, well, we knew we'd be on the pitch at some time, so we defended them well, but the corners were excellent. And look, we changed a few things, set up, and thankfully it worked. But look, again, it doesn't always work, and he's not the genius or smart, a bit smart there, because it worked. We won 1-0. The ball hits the crossbar and goes in. We're thinking, like, it's 1-1, like, so. It is what it is, but I'm happy with it.
Yeah, and the penalty obviously is a clear penalty. It was a good move down.
Yeah, it was
the
great.
left. So
good players again. Starts with keeper, I think, saving, making a save. Then it comes into Thomas. It's a great ball and it's brilliant from Warren. It's a great little run. He uses his body well. Gets in the box, and I can't ask for anything about Ryan Brennan. Although I've just been again reminded I haven't forgiven him for missing one up in the Brandywell a few years ago.
That's right.
But thankfully, I had no doubts about Ryan smashes it in. So fair play.
Yeah, like you see Derry going through. Obviously, there were 6 unbeaten going under this. Not a lot of ones in those. Not scoring a lot of goals, conceding a lot of goals. So I suppose you're looking at that and thinking we've got to take advantage when.
But they didn't go. I beat Shamrock Rovers last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They showed a lot of character to come back to the Galway game because that game could have petered out. Like, no, they're an excellent side. I've said it loads of times. Such brilliant players, really, really good. I know a lot of them because I've worked with a lot of them. But no, as I said, it's good for the lads because again there was a bit of outside. Like, you know what people expect of us. Like, last year was a bit mad and we took advantage of everything and it was great. But we're actually, I think. Again, we're not new players. It takes time. We're not at Derry or Shamrock Rovers or Bows or Shells or Pats. We're competing with. But one thing we have is we organise. We'll be tactically good. The players we bring in are really, really good, and they'll give everything for us, like everything. But again, Sligo coming here last week won 3 in a row. So look, as I said, that's not anything. I'm not saying we're brilliant, but. Just there was a bit of, as I said, outside now, but I'm happy we won the game and go home now.
There you go. So Kevin's good crack now. He's trying to blame the podcast for like getting us wee snippets of information, and anybody who listens to this podcast would know that that's not where you get information from, because we don't even know. No. I'm not sure when we go up to the press conferences and we ask questions and we have no idea until those team sheets are distributed.
Well, I've got to be honest. If Kevin Doherty's went down in my estimation,
because he's like,
if he's listening to, if he's listening to you and Kev for his tactics,
cheeky, hey.
But no, I think it's very tongue in cheek there. He's throwing out that he got a bit of information from here when. Nobody in Derry expected James Clark as a false 9.
No chance. No, that was very surprising. There's 5 changes. I wasn't expecting 5 changes.
No, but I think as I say, it's tongue in cheek. He likes a bit of banter. He's very clever in what he does. But I would say he was probably delighted to see the lack of a centre forward. And I think James Clark should be in the team every day of the week, but I just don't think he should be centre forward / false 9 because although. Especially in a team, as I've said earlier on there, that nobody's running beyond the ball, it sort of means then there is no target to your attack, and if there's no focal point to your attack, the ball's going wide, they're looking up, there's nobody there, it's going back again, it's going sideways. Any team that, you need an attack leader of some sort, you need a focal point to play off. James Clark's better when he's playing off somebody, put Dippo up there, move people about, go 2 up. Maybe I would say if they'd had to went 2 up, that would have surprised him. It would have surprised us all, probably.
Definitely, and as we already mentioned, Josh Thomas would have been thriving at that. I've been dying to see Dubbo and Thomas play together. Like even against Galway, it was like he brought Thomas on and Dubbo went off, and it's just one or the other.
Well, as you say, it's a strange thing because there has been tons of changes in all parts of the team, but that's 2 up top's probably the one that a really obvious one that we haven't seen, and you have with 2. The classic big man, little man combination you used to see.
Exactly.
We actually have that sitting there if we wanted to give it a run out. And maybe it is because Dippo hasn't been fit. He's still what do you think about still 70-75 minutes in him according to Tiernan?
Aye, but even if it
playing the
is
75 minutes,
even if it is 15 minutes at the end of the game and you've only tried and you're chasing, I think he made the change. I think he has a tendency to make these changes and make them all at once.
Yeah, sort of
and there was the trouble substitution in the 70th minute, and then it was later on, I think it was 80 something minute, then he made 2 more, and for me it was too late.
Yeah.
Like you probably should have made them a lot sooner, because nothing was changing the start of the second half, and apart from Drogheda getting a wee bit of confidence and the goal eventually. But it's just, for me, it was very negative, and that's been my issue with it for the last few games. It's been too negative. Like, we went 5 at the back against Galway. At home.
Yeah, that was a strange
one. And obviously he got burnt down in DC Park. So maybe that was the reason, and he was thinking, like, these are dangerous, and they were going to be 2 up top.
Well, that's what I agree with you. I think that was a bizarre selection. The only maybe stipulation I would say is with the 2 big men that they had up, he was maybe thinking of pushing the fullbacks on and having 2 markers and 1 dropping off. But even at that, you don't. In my book, you don't go 5. If you're Derry City, he doesn't go 5 at the back against Galway. You have to carry the fight to them. Don't be worrying about what they can do. Let them worry about what Derry can do.
Let's think about his reaction after that Galway game, and he was talking about people in the crowd saying, "Let the handbrake off," and he was agreeing. It's time to let the handbrake off. Players obviously getting the message. Let's be brave. Was what we were hearing. 2 strikers on the bench, is that being brave? Is that letting the handbrake off?
Well,
so what? Like, are you just saying this as a response to appease people after the match? But then you're getting back, you're going back, and you're cheating under your shell, really, like, again, just because. And I think it's because of the start of the season. There's no room for error here, and I think that has affected the mindset, because now it's more negative than maybe you would have leeway if you had won the first 4 home games, the points on the board. Then you can be more adventurous. Now you can't afford to lose any more games. Well, we've now lost 5 games, one more than we've won out of 16. We've won 4 games out of 16.
25% win ratio. That's
25% win ratio. And if you look even deeper, those 4 games where we were very, very fortunate. They won 2 of them anyway. And the 2-2 draw against Dundalk was very fortunate too, last minute. Even like the Waterford game where you were at it, Mick, and again 4-2. It doesn't tell the whole story of that game.
It doesn't remotely tell you.
And I don't like hammering them, but it's just doesn't seem anything's changing, and that's what you can understand, the strength of feeling. And there's no denying it. If there was anybody kind of thought, oh, that's just your the vocal people online or your keyboard warriors, it's really not. I would say it's the majority of this fan base are really like losing patience if they haven't lost it already. Like, you've obviously seen the strength of feeling online.
And you get enough messages through about it and things like that. But I think you hit sort of the nail on the head there when Tiernan maybe doesn't help himself at times, where he said all the right things after the Galway, because Galway was very frustrating. As you said, take the handbrake off, play it brave. That's exactly what you want to hear. And Derry fans, but you can't fool everybody all the time. You're saying you're going to do that, and that's what Derry fans want. That's what they wanted to see. But then we go to Drogheda and drop our centre forward, play a false 9, and I know there's different ways of interpretation formations. He could, maybe he did tell Mickey and Kevin DeSantos get into the box.
You could say that's three up front.
Yeah, you could say 3 up front. But it didn't play out like that. So that's and that's where it makes then what he said after Galway seem, it seems insincere almost if you're going to say that. Now, I don't think Tiernan. I think what he's saying, he means he wants it to take it off. Whereas it's just because confidence is so fragile that maybe the players, they're taking that wee extra touch when they shouldn't. They're maybe afraid to go beyond Drogheda, because confidence is a big thing. Momentum is a big thing. But I would agree with you. It stuck out like a sore thumb that you were expecting a reaction. You were expecting Derry to go flying at them, in an attacking sense. And when you seen the fact that there wasn't a centre forward, and that you were thinking it nearly sent out the wrong message.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And from there, the swelling of of unrest that has definitely been, and it is growing. There's no point saying,
Well,
there's no
Mick,
point saying otherwise. Like, I think anybody that travels in Derry City
Yeah.
circles is hearing some of it. Like,
Well, Derry City themselves, and that's the one that I used as my reaction piece as well, just for reference. But there was like over 200 comments, and basically it was just a picture from the game saying defeat, and that was like that was Derry's response on their social media channel. And underneath that on Facebook, now there was similar things probably on Twitter and Instagram, but on Facebook alone there was 200 comments. And I trolled through them all, and there were some harsh words. There was very, very close to the bone, some of them, but all relevant in terms of, you know, everybody's concerns seem to be the same, but a lot of them now just want a change in management. And like we've over the course of the last few weeks, and there's, you know, we got a reprieve of those games that we mentioned, Shelbourne and Rovers. But that just papered over cracks, and now the fans are just out in force, and I wouldn't be surprised to see banners in the next home game, you know, like, you know, voicing their feelings here, because that's where we've got to now. Like like if you read those comments, there's no reading between the lines. It's just there. It's blatant that they want Lynch out.
the one thing you have to say is, like, none of this will come as a surprise to Tiernan Lynch. He's not, you know, he's not a fool. He's not. He knows how the game works. He also knows how big a club Derry City is. Like, with all due respect to you know, Larne and the rest of them, Derry's you're under a spotlight 24/7 when you're managing Derry City. So he's not going to be surprised by any of this. I would say he knows it's coming. He's probably well aware of it, but because for all the chat about, you know, stats and this, the only stat that really matters are the results.
These results.
It's a results business, and
He's saying that, and he knows himself.
That's what I'm saying. So nobody needs to tell Tiernan that winning 4 games out of 16 puts you on a, you know, on a very, very unsure footing is probably the way to put it. And it's like an old record, but the only way you get out of that is you win a load of matches.
But do you think it would be like fans would be better off hearing like Lynch coming out and going, this isn't good enough. Something needs to change. Maggie Duffy came out and says, we're playing for our positions here now, because after that performance, I would love to hear Tiernan saying that and go, listen, that was not good enough. You know, these players, there'll be players here that they won't be playing next Friday night.
I can see why.
You know, until they prove to me that they can prove their performances, or we can.
Well, I can understand why he's saying what he's saying, especially at the start of it. But this town is very knowledgeable about football, and you'll get away with that, you know, at the start when there's a couple of bad results. But if it's still going on to the extent that it is, you said it again, there's only been 4 matches we've won this season. If you're still saying that at this point, it's a time where I think they would appreciate that sort of hard truth coming out and saying, look, and and see, in fairness to him, we have to be fair, he has says, look, we haven't been good enough and all, and he's probably trying to keep the guys on side, and it's a balancing act, because whereas we're able to shout and say this is bad, he has to manage a group of players, and he also can't alienate them. He can't alienate them to a degree. He needs them to be fighting, which, as we've said earlier,
but are you alienating them, Mick? Are you alienating them by they're on one week, they seem to play decent, they get a good result, and then you're out the next week? For me, that's worse.
Yeah, that
you know,
can be.
If there's no rhyme or reason, and who knows what way he's telling them, or if he's taking them to the side.
Well, that's the thing. You can't.
That's up to him. He's the manager.
You can't be privy to that.
With him, man.
You know, you can't be privy to that. Which is, I agree. You know, moving guys in and out. I think of what that leads to is frustration. You know, because, for example, Dos Santos, he was brought in on the basis of his cameo, and he was very good in training. But do you take him back out now, or do you give him 6 matches? Because I think if you're a player like that coming into a new league, and I'm talking about this even for Markey, for Clark, you have to get them in, put them into position, give them 10 to 12, 15 games before they're getting up to speed in a new town, a new team, a new position. You're moving them about, they're not getting that. So I think you're right in the sense that would cause a lot of frustration. But in terms of the fans, you know, Waterford this weekend, I can't stress how huge this is going to be. Like if they don't win this weekend, those comments that I think we've all seen, and some of them are out of order. Like, let's call a spade a spade. I don't think there's I don't like to see anybody getting getting abused by social media and things like that. But that's just gonna be amplified if it doesn't, and that's the problem, because we're not getting. I think if you got a performance and things were going wrong once or twice, you buy a bit of. But we haven't seen either. We haven't seen result or performance.
But we're third of the way through the season. We're in our 16th game, and we see, like, I know Tiernan made a point of saying, we're starting to see that identity. Like, what identity have we got? We don't know. There's no point talking about it. Could be, like, that's on the clouds. Like, you know, there's been no signs of that. Like, we don't know what way we're meant to be playing. We don't know. Like, we'll talk about the head of recruitment now that they've advertised for, but the players that they've got on. There's just no cohesion there. There's no cohesion because we've already gone over this, with the fact that there's the formation keeps changing, the players and the personnel keeps changing. Relationships haven't been built. But in terms of the head of recruitment, like, what did you think? The timing of it, I thought, was a bit off again. Like Derry City, like, sometimes it's just like, we'll brush this under the carpet. There's a match on, and but no harm. I know it's a positive move, and also I don't like they belittle it. Well, it is, surely. That's having a head of recruitment. I
would say ordinarily a head of recruitment, but we've had 2 in the last year or something. Can you name either of them?
Yes, I can, but I don't want
to. I'm sure I'm in the majority with Derry City.
McLaughlin was the first one that came over from Burton. His first name escapes me right now, but the second guy, Connor Hayden, wasn't officially announced, but part of that London-based recruitment agency that was on from the start of the season. And then suddenly they were out of there. Who appointed them? Well, I'm not sure.
This is my point. My point here is,
this is very much a club advertising for the role, which I'm not sure if the first time they advertised for the role, I'm nearly sure, just last summer, and he came over and got the job. So they didn't, as far as I know, advertise in the closed season. They've now advertised here. It's very specific in terms of the job specifications. You know, is it tailor-made for somebody in particular?
How many guys do we know that have captained their country?
I don't say captain your country. You have to, but I know what you're getting at, Mike. but captain, you had to get captain like a top side and the FAI, EFL. You know, so it does. It's very layered. It's just a very peculiar thing they have on a job specification, like, for that role. It seems it's very much an ex-footballer that they want on, which I think is a great idea. It has to be like somebody who's a knowledge of the league as well.
My remit there is I don't care if he's a chef down the town, as long as he's good at doing the job.
That's
all it has to be. I don't care what his thing is. Now,
but it's a crucial position in a modern day football club.
It's a very almost specifically written thing. I know I'm joking. You can put 2 and 2 together and come up with.
Think a lot of it.
But there's a few people who are probably looking at it going, I have an idea maybe, and that's probably miles away from it.
It probably is.
Yeah, but my issue is that with this head of recruitment thing is that we've had a couple of them. Has it been a success in the past?
Well, I asked Tiernan Lynch after the match about it, and the answer is no.
You said earlier about we're averaging 10 signings a window.
That's what I'm saying, and this is what kind of like mind boggled me was I asked Tiernan about it, and he says, look, this is a very, very hugely progressive move by the club, which I agree with.
Yes, but we've had 2.
But we've already tried this. And he says, like, Philip sees the benefit of bringing in and having like a process, having good, like, you're doing your due diligence with players. Why haven't you done that in the past?
That's what I was about. You took the words out of my mouth.
But also, like, we've got a lot of signings on that have been injury prone, and there's players that come and gone that Tiernan has signed, that he's identified, brought in. They haven't worked. That happens in football.
No, that's football.
I would say the percentage of the players that you come on, it's not always going to be high, but that becomes successful. But for me, they're going to work with the manager, the first team manager, overseen by the board, these decisions, these players that are coming through, also the academy, because they're going to try and get a style of football that goes through the structures and under the first time, so you slot on. And
you're looking at me because I'm smirking.
You're smirking. That's possible.
Look,
Rovers do it.
I'm saying that's positive, but to me, that's so long term in terms, and it should be in place. It should be in place. But what we're talking about here is something that's going to benefit Derry City if it's done right. We've seen it twice in the past not done right, but if this one's done right in terms of the structure and more importantly the personnel that comes in, that will benefit Derry, but it will benefit Derry in 2, 3, 4 years time. We're talking about a team that's won 4 games in 16.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
It's not going to, unless of course
Like,
we're dealing with another massive transfer window in the summer.
well, that's what we hope not. But part of that remit too, it is long term. It is short term. It's medium term. It's long term, because they're also going to be working with academy players and sending these players out in loan. So
we all want to see more from the academy.
Aye.
You know, boys coming through.
Hopefully it works in that regard. But there can't be another like influx of players. Like, and that's what one of the other things that Tiernan said in that interview was the fact that he hopes that. You know, there's not going to be this big. We're not going to be reliant on a big influx of players at the one time.
That confused me, because that would suggest who has the final say between people coming in and going out, because like I know there was people in there before.
Well, Trevor's writing the checks, I would say, but he has to be persuaded that this is the right person for this club. This is who I need, and when Tiernan was going to the board, they press his case for I need a right back. No Ronan Boyce, and Cameron Dummingham was still out, and Connor Barr was just come back from Cliftonville.
But my point is, if we're saying look, this is because we're doing, there's too much of a turnover, we're bringing in too many at the same time and things like that. That suggests that Tiernan wasn't responsible for bringing.
It does suggest, but I don't think that's the case.
I'm not saying I don't actually know, because as you say,
that's why I was a bit puzzled by it.
That's what would puzzle me about that situation. And is it a positive if they can get that structure streamlined, and so they know A, B, and C and what's going to happen? Of course it is, but I don't think it's going to make a huge difference in the short term. Which, as you're saying, there's a swelling of unrest. We need the squad that we have now. Tiernan needs them to come together and just get a run of results, because that's the only thing that's going to.
Yeah, I think if it doesn't, I think if it doesn't get a one in Waterford, now we're 3 points off Sligo, and who are in the relegation playoff spot. We're 16 off Shamrock Rovers. We can kiss goodbye to any kind of aspirations they won the league. But European football is a must for this football club in terms of
the investments, and that's the least you would expect. The squad that they have,
it's imperative that they get the European money, Mick. It really is. No matter if you have a billionaire chairman or not. For this club, they survive. You need European football, and because you're going to be left behind. Not even you're going to survive, but you're going to be left behind by the likes of Pats and Shelburne if they're getting on every year. So and Rovers are already miles ahead. So it's very, very important that they get this right and get it right soon. And I know what people are saying, and they want the change in management and all the rest. That there's no getting away with it. That's why we kind of have to. I don't like doing it, because he's on situ. He's it's his livelihood, as we said before. Yeah. You don't want people losing their job. You would rather Tiernan Lynch got it right, and still we started seeing some great football and results and climbing up that table, which could very well happen. Football's a funny old game. You don't know how they could sort of.
It's fickle. Let's be honest. Is there a swelling of unrest? 100% there is, but is there also a fickleness among all of us supporters? Yeah, because if Tiernan gets that team to win the next 3 or 4 matches, now that's obviously a massive if. But if he does that, the tables will turn completely, and he knows that. He knows that. But the question is, are they capable of doing that? Yeah. Can you settle on a team? Can you get them out? The head of recruitment thing to me is a very, very separate thing, because that's not going to help. It's not necessarily going to help the team in the short term. That's a structural change that the club needs to make, but that will probably, let's be honest, will probably benefit the next. If they get it right, will benefit the next 3 or 4 managers, not just Tiernan.
Exactly. I think I do think it's something that has to be in place, and somebody who's regulating and so if there is a change in management, they don't have full reign. They come and go right now. I want because it was like a bit of it was a bit of a lucky bag. It was in terms of who you're getting. It was like football championship manager, where you're going, I'm going to have him, James Clark, Bohemians top goal scorer last season. I'll have him. Murky, absolutely
excellent player.
He took us apart in the cup final. He was absolutely brilliant every time we played him. I'll have him. And you're, without any kind of rhyme or reason, they without a plan. And that was the thing. So they need to get that right. Whether it was, like, obviously they have an idea, and there's been injuries and stuff like that. But in terms of Friday night, it's a huge game down to RSC. They've got a new manager.
Yeah.
Now, I know they were destroyed there last week. I think there was one each at one stage, and then they just they lost their run on themselves. But it's a huge game for both teams there, and if Derry don't win, they're dragged right down onto that
it's
the bottoms.
It is nearly like Tiernan's luck at the minute, where just as we travelled to Waterford, they get what they'll hope will be a new manager bounce. So that's a wee bit typical of how things are going for him at the minute. Now he'll obviously hope they don't get that bounce, and that's the job that they have.
Yeah.
Because they're all going to be coming flying out early doors to try and impress the new guy. Every player in the Waterford squad will want to make a mark in this match. So Derry are facing that, and they're going to have to put that down in the first 20 minutes, half an hour.
Yeah.
We've seen enough in the match at the Brandywell to say that there are no mugs. There's no mugs here. They might be down, towards the bottom of the table. Are they going to be fighting for their survival and stuff this year? Well, they're obviously hoping not with a new man in, but they were decent at the Brandywell. They were decent.
They were. Obviously, the two boys up front, they've definitely got threats. But in terms of the rest of the matches, Mick, we've got so obviously Derry away to Waterford. Bows are playing Drogheda, be an interesting one. I think in terms of that risk for Europe, St Pat's and Shelbourne are there too. Yeah. Now, obviously, Pats are going to be looking up and looking for. They won this league as well too. I don't know if they have it on them by just recent results and how they've fallen away.
You're going at the first 16, so, you would see probably more consistency with Rovers, and that's probably where, unless Stephen Kenny can get them on the sort of a run that we've seen, a year or two ago when they nearly came through. If you get that sort of run, maybe they are capable. But the only team in the league that looks capable of doing that at the minute is Rovers.
Rovers, who are away to Dundalk, at their Royal Park, and I've been impressed with Dundalk recently.
Yeah. So I've been impressed with them for a team that has come up. They don't look like a team that's fighting for survival at all. They look like a team who believes they belong there and fancy Europe.
Yeah.
To be honest, they look like a team fancy a go at Europe, which is worrying if you're Derry, because that's another contender in there.
Exactly. The last one is on Saturday in Sligo Rovers Galway. So again, Sligo is an opportunity at home. Galway, it's going to be tight there,
It's going to be tight, but that's a match.
It's a game that could put Derry and a wee bit of baller as well. I'm not saying that baller, but I mean just in terms of the optics of the league at this stage, and in terms of Tiernan Lynch.
I think we all know what you mean there, because depending on how Friday night goes, then if it goes well, we won't. Let's be honest, no Derry fan will probably have a look. But if it goes wrong at the RSC, there'll be a few nervous glances being put towards the phones on Saturday just to check how that match is going, because it could drag you into a battle that you don't want to be in. We don't want to be anywhere near it.
Well, we're going for a prediction here, because you've been rambling on. Hey, something desperate, this podcast.
Well, you haven't had me on in weeks. So
you not already speak in the house?
No, not normally.
So
not normally. So because you haven't had me on in so long, I thought I'd try to get 2 weeks, 3 months worth of chat in. So,
but in terms of prediction, because I've been nail on the head for the last 2 weeks.
Oh God, nail on the head! You'd have to get off the fence to get the nail on the head.
I mean, fairly forthright in my predictions.
Well, look, it's a game Derry have to win. I think the old famous must win comes out, gets wheeled.
Well, they've said that already.
Ones, yeah. So the unknown in it is the new manager.
Yeah.
And I gotta be honest, I don't know an awful lot about him. I was actually impressed with Waterford when they were up here. Mm-hmm. But what Derry did show that day is they can also score goals against them. So I'm going to go 3-1 Derry.
Just, 3-1?
I'm thinking Waterford's strengths are in attack, so they'll try to go there, and I'm hoping they come out and attack Derry, because that game suits Derry when they can counter teams and they can push. If Waterford sit in, I would worry that we have the capabilities of breaking them down. But no, I think it'll actually be quite an open game. I don't know why I'm saying that. It's a notion I have, but
very positive.
I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm trying, because I think they are due a bit of luck. They're due a bit of luck, and I think Waterford are quite open, especially the longer the game goes on. And Derry could exploit that if they get the right men on the pitch.
Yeah, because that's the thing. That's what we've been hoping for every week, because we know there's quality there, that the boys that can find the back of the net too once they're on form. I like that. I do think they're going to win this game as well too, but it's not going to be easy. They're going to have to grind it out. The Waterford manager was very, very harsh on his assessment of their last game, and says there's boys in that changing room that won't be playing for this club again, and that's so he's got to work with that. There's two clubs in that very good place at the minute. I just think Derry will have an advantage. Now, it also depends on how the Derry players have responded to last week, because as I said, like, I've never seen them as downbeat and kind of bewildered. They look like beaten dockets. Now they were training at Celtic Park this week, weren't they? Early stages. The press conference is tomorrow up in Owen Bay. I'll be heading up to that. Podcast will be out on Wednesday, obviously. So we'll see what kind of the mood in the camp is. I see James McLean was back in the gym. I don't know if I'd say he's a good bit away from coming back as well probably. Too. But it'll be interesting. We're not going to get any team news if Kevin Doherty's listening. Not that he'll care anyway, because he's got 3 points in the bag. But just before we go, I'd like to just sort of pay tribute to obviously Pride on Northside supporter, long-term Derry City supporter Charlie Doherty, who passed away sadly. He was down at the Drogheda match and fell ill when he came back and passed away suddenly. Thoughts with his family and friends, and Charlie was going to matches, Mick, from the 60s, I was chatting to Michael Kerrigan, chairman of Pride on Northside, and he was basically saying, why are you going to these matches? You're in so much pain going down, and it's getting in and out of the bus and all the rest, and so rather be in pain down here in Drogheda or wherever it was, or at the matches, watching the matches, and sitting in the house in pain, and he was just through and through Derry City, and there were some lovely words at his funeral mass. I watched it online, the Long Tower there, and on Monday, and he's going to be sadly missed. He was
I didn't know Charlie personally, but reading some of the tributes since, even reading the piece you done for the Journal, I mean, like, if you could bottle what Charlie had, and sell it, it was just phenomenal. He sounded like a phenomenal man, and as you say, condolences, because Derry City's lost a special supporter there.
Definitely. So let's hope they can get the one for Charlie, and we'll see you next week. Sorry, folks. He'll be back too.